Hey everybody, welcome into Redacted on this Monday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we suffer no fools and cover the stories the mainstream media largely redacts and doesn't cover. We've got a few redacted stories in the show today, actually. Courtesy of Thomas Massey, Congressman Thomas Massey. We're going to talk about that.
We're going to show you all manner of COVID documents that have been redacted when he asked the CDC, why did you lie about the efficacy of the COVID vaccine? Please show me these emails. And he got a stack like this that was redacted. That's the second story we're going to talk about today. I teased it first, though, because I'm excited about it.
We're also going to talk about an update on this helicopter crash that killed the Iranian president and a finance minister and what the mystery around that is saying to us tonight. We're going to look at that. We're also going to look at, does the United Nations have a replacement plan for the United States, a United Nations army, if you will, that's already basically embedded in the United States? We're going to talk about that and the unbelievable sourcing on that.
We're skipping around so I'm going to tell you about my story about the LGBT. So now the State Department is warning Americans that they may be unsafe at Pride events this June because terrorists. Which terrorists? I don't know. Terrorists are going to be targeting Pride events. What do you think of that? We're going to look at that data.
Also, Anthony Rubin from Muckraker is going to be here. We're going to talk about this unbelievable story about illegal immigrants using this money scheme, basically a sort of kickback scheme by using DoorDash and Uber Eats to get some money. And this could be the very same thing that, of course, led to a famous death recently, a famous murder recently, which we'll talk about. But we want to say thanks to all of you guys. We were out last week. Man, there was like a steamroller of an illness that ran through the Morris house. So the three kids, and it's like, they're sick every 6 months. That's what kids are, in school. And then it hits us and we
probably get every third one that they bring home. So we're at a pretty okay clip, but this one was violent, if you know what I mean.
It was violent.
Before we go on, can you please turn my earpiece up just a little bit more to say test?
Test, good.
There. I can hear you now, chat room. I can hear what you're saying.
I think the kids were in the studio playing hide and seek at one point this weekend, so things might have gotten bumped, knocked around in the studio, so we apologize. But hey, we got a news roundup here. Let's kick off the show with some news items that you might have missed over the weekend and some big stories. Iran, of course, on edge. Thousands of people pouring into the streets over the death of their president in a helicopter crash, of course, over the weekend. Now, it happened in Azerbaijan. The crash comes days after the Slovak Prime Minister, Fico, of course, was shot 5 times. So many people are wondering, well, wait a minute, was this an assassination attempt? Was this purely an accident? Was this pilot error? I mean, the official word, of course, is when you look at this fog that rolled in. Can you fly through that? No. You remember Kobe Bryant? No, you cannot fly through this type of condition. So was this pilot error? I mean, think Occam's razor, basically, right? What is the, how do you describe Occam's razor? Like the straight line to
the easiest explanation is usually the
when all things being equal, all things being equal, the easiest explanation is the correct answer.
The straight line, right? Yeah, it's the easiest explanation. So massive amounts of fog moves in. It's, at one point, and you're wondering, okay, clearly, and then he hits the side of a mountain and all of these individuals are killed. But here's the question. Why would that fog have appeared so suddenly? What type of weather would have caused this? Weather researchers wanted to know. And so they went to analyze the satellite data, and they discovered something stunning. The satellite weather data had been entirely removed from the website. The entire day is now gone. Independent researcher Into Thin Air, who does a great job on his channel, discovered this in his research of the sudden fog and the sudden fog that emerged. Watch what he found. Watch.
This happened the morning or early in the day on the 19th, and now it's obviously a whole different time. So as I move this, you're going to notice something weird. We get into nightfall. This is the beginning of the night of the 18th for this part of the world. And as we move forward, you're going to notice something. We're going to get to the end of this bar here where we should be moving into the 19th, which is where we would see the weather and what's going on in this area when the helicopter crashed. But look what happens here. They have removed the entire 19th from the weather chart. You're going to see I'm just about at the end of the data here. Watch, it goes from the 18th right to the 20th. There it goes. Boom. It just pops from the 18th to the 20th, removing the entire 19th day. So we cannot see what was going on here, no matter what setting I pick here. And I'll just show you on this chart here. This overlay here is meant to be able to see fog, and we'd be looking right in this area here. And again, you move from the 18th across the day. These take a little bit longer to load, but once you get all the way to here, it goes from the 18th to the 20th right there. Again, one click covers an entire day. So they have removed 24 hours of weather from one of the biggest weather charts that exists. This is one of the most detailed charts we can use to find weather all over the world, and we would be able to see exactly what was going on in this area, but they have taken the data away.
So again, Occam's razor, fog, helicopters, they don't mix. Again, Kobe Bryant, right? Hit the side of a mountain and everyone is killed, right? That's clearly the easiest explanation for this. But why was this fog suddenly rolling in here? Why would then the largest weather data satellite provider of this information remove that day from their database so that people can't analyze what actually happened over that zone? We don't know. It's convenient though. What are they trying to hide with this? Let us see the data. Let us see that there was a lot of conspiracy theories, of course, jumping immediately, calling Mossad,
yes,
CIA. But this all comes in a series of like assassination attempts over the past few weeks. So, I mean, call us crazy.
Right.
We want to ask questions.
Slovakia, Ukraine, yes, right? So, okay.
Saudi Arabia.
This is a strange happenstance. Why is it all of a sudden so dangerous to be a global world leader?
Yeah, and by the way, global world leaders that sort of align themselves with Russia. So anyway.
An Eastern global world leader, right?
Yeah.
Hard out there for a pimp. Okay. Also, a court in the UK has granted Julian Assange the right to appeal his extradition to the United States. So this was a win. It doesn't feel like it because he's not free, because he still does have to live in Belmarsh prison while he fights his appeal, which is not right. He's not been convicted of anything. He should not be in prison. He should be able to walk free while he does this. But because this guy has been so tortured by Western governments, any kind of win has to feel like a big win. And today I was watching the WikiLeaks live coverage of the trial outside the courtroom, and people were cheering, they were high-fiving, they were crying, they were, just chanting for his freedom, because it felt like if the court actually believed that the United States would do right by Julian Assange, lol, then he could get on a plane and be sent to the United States within a matter of days. The court did not believe the United States assurances that they would treat him well, which is hilarious because one of the things the United States argued was that we won't give him the death penalty. And his lawyers said, okay, that's interesting. United States, you have a separation of powers between executive branch and judicial branch, right? Yes. So how can you assure an outcome of the judicial branch? How can anyone make that assurance? We're not supposed to, but we're saying it because we want the guy. That's literally what they argued. They said, we won't give him the death penalty, but we actually don't have the right to make that assurance.
He's basically admitting, we have a deep state in the United States. He's like, well, we pretend we have a separation of state, of church and state, a separation of powers in the United States.
Three-branch government. Yeah.
But let's be honest, the deep state runs everything. So, but we won't kill him. We promise we won't.
The U.S. lawyers just tell me what you want me to say. Tell me what it will take to get me out of here with Assange today. Just what do you want to hear?
Right. No, I'll make it up.
But those of us who are U.S. citizens, we should not like this. We should not like that our Justice Department is arguing that they can affect an outcome of a trial. I don't like that. They should not be able to do that, but that's what they were trying to do. Also, they were trying to make this distinction between the fact that he's a citizen or not and whether the First Amendment rights would be extended to someone who's not a U.S. citizen. And it fell apart. The bottom fell out from under it. And the courts in the UK said, no, we're going to give this guy his full right to appeal. So he will do that. The dates weren't set. That will be decided later by the judge and the group of lawyers that are fighting for and against this. So we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, he does not get to fight his extradition like former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa, who was allowed to live free while fighting extradition. He still does have to be in a high security prison, being tortured by the government there. So that's not right. But, those of us who support Julian Assange and the cause are lapping up the crumbs at this point. That's all we get. So we're going to celebrate it because we get so few wins. So that's the update on Assange. A
lot of people in the chat saying it's small win, but hey, we'll take anything we can get right now. So exactly. Let's talk about this. A coup in Congo. Is America trying to foment a coup in the Democratic Republic of Congo? No, we'd never do something like that, would we? United States doesn't foment coups. Then why the hell were 3 Americans just busted up and beat up near the Capitol trying to start a coup with 50 other people, trying to overthrow the government? They tried to storm the presidential palace and were beaten back by police, and then they were arrested. Here you can see the Americans there getting handcuffed and stand up. So why were Americans in the Congo trying to be a part of this coup, this 50-person coup? Here you can see them being detained and handcuffed. And by the way, one of the American detainees is a 36-year-old U.S. citizen born in Maryland. Here you can see the passport, which has now been posted online. Good luck finding out much about these guys. They have almost no digital footprint. And that's usually in keeping with people that don't want to have a digital footprint. Who are these Americans? The U.S. ambassador to Congo, Lucy Tamlin, issued a statement acknowledging that, yes, American citizens were involved in this coup. She acknowledged it. The alleged mastermind behind the coup is Christian Malanga, who's a Congolese politician based in the United States. And sources say that Malanga died as he was resisting arrest. So Americans in Congo starting a coup. That's how we kick off your Monday here on the show. We're going to get to more news here in a second. We're going to talk about the UN replacement plan and why the United Nations Army may already be inside the United States. Wait until you hear this evidence. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at GhostBed, because did you know that 60% of U.S. adults report being too hot when they try to sleep? This is absolutely my pattern. I go to sleep with big, thick socks, and then at some point in the night, I kick them off the bed and I find them in the morning because I just get too stinking hot. Well, you won't have this problem if you check out our friends at GhostBed, because they have premium materials designed for durability and comfort and to help you stay cool at night so that you can sleep longer and deeper and cooler and more comfortably. The GhostBed Luxe has been called the coolest bed in the world, and it's the most popular and features the signature Ghost Ice cooling technology with 7 layers of comfort and a balanced medium feel. You know, choosing a mattress, of course, is personal, but it doesn't have to be stressful. So you can take their GhostBed founder Mark's mattress quiz and answer a few questions about your sleeping style and preferences and get your personalized mattress recommendation by going to ghostbed.com/pages/mattress-quiz. You'll find it right on the homepage too. If you head on over to ghostbed.com/redacted, you'll find it there. You can answer questions and get your most personalized recommendation. So you can find it for yourself and get 50% off of your selection if you head on over to ghostbed.com/redacted. If you're ready for a more comfortable night of sleep, check them out and use the code redacted and get 50% off your purchase site-wise. Again, that's 50% using the code redacted, ghostbed.com/redacted.
Well, does the United Nations have a secret army of illegal immigrants already embedded in America for a hostile takeover? That's quite a loaded question. Let's leave that question actually dangling out there for a minute, if you will. But we're deep diving into one of the most pressing issues facing the United States of America right now, the southern border crisis. And we've got some shocking new details that are, frankly, mind-blowing. Which we'll get to here in a moment. Now, as we've exposed here on the show before, the federal government seems to be complicit in a massive criminal operation, deliberately flooding the country with unvetted illegal foreigners, distributing them all over the United States. It's a full-on operation, as our friend J.J. Carroll has uncovered here, Michael Yon has spoken about on our show, Anthony Rubin from Muckraker, unbelievable journalists doing amazing work. This is what's happening. Giving them cell phones, giving them homes, giving them financial monthly payments to live. One piece of this appears to be election fraud, right? But as journalist Greg Reese points out, it's actually much worse than that, because what's happening in the United States is not an isolated incident. It's happening all across Europe. Europeans are waking up to this fact. And on today's show, an overwhelming number of Europeans say illegal immigration is destroying their country. Take a look at these new numbers. New survey, 7 in 10 Europeans believe that their country is accepting too many migrants. Look at that. Greece, 90% of citizens say yes. Cyprus, no, I mean, they're all over like 70%. All of them saying way too many migrants.
And the few that are reporting no work for the government.
Right.
And probably are not allowed to answer that honestly.
You know, interesting. I think if you go down the list, if you go even further down the list, you'll see like Portugal, you'll see some other countries in there, you know, like 50%, but like almost overwhelmingly 70% at the least, like average there. We now have new evidence. This is all part of a George Soros and United Nations plan called Population Division. Now, the Population Division of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, as the United Nations writes, conducts demographic research, supports intergovernmental processes at the United Nations in the area of population and development, and assists countries in developing their capacity to produce and analyze population data and information. So it's a solution they propose for dealing with declining and aging populations, which most of the West is dealing with right now. I mean, look at Japan. Well, it's East, but Western aligned countries, I should say. But now, the recent events unfolding, it's clear that there's more to this story. So back in 2015, George Soros implemented across the globe to bring millions of illegals into the United States and into Europe. As Hungary's leader, Viktor Orban, recently pointed out, Soros did this by buying off members of parliaments in country after country after country. This wasn't done by happenstance. When George Soros would buy them off, they would then align with his policies for mass illegal migration into those countries. Listen to Victor.
I do remember how Mr. George Soros published his plan in English in a Project Syndicate publication. It was done 2015, September 26. And he published a plan. He said that he is my, I'm quoting, here are the 6 components of my comprehensive plan. I just quote 2 or 3 points of that. First is, he said very clearly, 2015, that, quoting again, EU has to accept at least 1 million asylum seekers annually. That was the first point. Second, he said, adequate financing is critical. And he proposed to issue long-term euro bonds for financing the migration crisis and the migrants' social and welfare taking care when they arrive to the European Union. And another point which is very important for Hungary, which is involving the territory of Hungary directly into this program, he said that, quoting them, safe channels must be established for asylum seekers, starting with getting them from Greece and Italy to their destination countries, which means to bring them to Greece, to Hungary, and then have them to go to Austria. So don't forget that what we are speaking about is not an accidental stories, not a bulk of 10 years of accidental stories. It's a plan which is going on. It was written, it was published, it's known. So we are fighting again an organized gang called Empire of George Soros, NGOs, who are just supporting everybody who is transgressing our legal system and our regulation, and financing illegal activity against our nation. So this is why the story is not just about migration, but it's about how this European Union is working and how George Soros was able to captive the main positions inside many institutions of European Union, buying out MPs and other leaders, and in order to execute the plan which is written, and it's against all the Christian and nation-based political forces. It's against us. It's about how to change Europe and how to eliminate and push aside all the Christian, conservative, national-based political leaders and voters from the European Union decision-making bodies. So this is the migration about, not just about migration. Sorry for
Viktor Orban. That's why they don't like him. But wait, there's more. A new report from UK's Jim Ferguson shed light on what's really going on. Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. As Jim Ferguson exposed in this interview, they're actually United Nations trained army soldiers being paid and delivered by the United Nations. Now, Greg Reese did a great job clipping this soundbite together. I encourage you to watch the whole thing, but here are some unbelievable takeaways from Jim's interview, and here's just a highlight. Take a look.
this isn't normal. There's something not right. This isn't just refugees coming in. These aren't people fleeing from some kind of war zone. These are predominantly men aged between 25 and 35, young fighting age men, as my old boss Nigel Farage once referred to them, and I think he's right. John, what do you think's going on here, mate?
So I can tell you these are UN soldiers, and they will be deployed by the WHO when they announce the next pandemic lockdown. That's what's going to happen. They've been trained by British soldiers. They've been trained by the Black Watch Regiment. They were training them in Antalya in Turkey and in the east of Ukraine. They're predominantly down to sergeant ranks. They're then shipped to France. They all sign the Official Secrets Act. Then they're ferried over. If you were fleeing war and tyranny, I don't know about you, but I would certainly take my wife and children with me. They're most precious. They're my prized asset. You know, they're everything to me. If you're going to war, you go to war with the lads. They're going to be deployed. They will be deployed.
John, I mean, you say you spoke to people in the Black Watch. I mean, the Black Watch, a very famous, regiment.
Yes.
Are they actually going along with this?
They've got no choice. Well, I kind of said, why are you doing it? And he said, soldiers follow orders. What you're going to see is the following. We'll have a minister somewhere in cabinets suddenly come up with a great idea on how we're going to get these guys to contribute to help us. And they're going to put them in uniforms. So a couple of people have told me these uniforms are burgundy. Others have told me they're UN blue. I really don't know. I guess we'll see when they deploy them. They are going to be deployed, because otherwise, if they announced another lockdown, what would everyone say? They'd say bollocks, and they'd go about their business, wouldn't they? They're going to need armed young men in uniform to try and enforce it. Why do they import young men from the East? Because traditionally, if you want to kill and tyrannize white people, you put black soldiers in, because there's a cultural disassociation, and that's their method. That's the way these globalists are going to do it.
In America, when it was a colony of the United Kingdom of Britain, there was a revolution against British colonial rule.
That's right.
And a lot of people didn't realize, but it was only 3% of those people in America that overthrew the British forces and basically got rid of them. 3% of the population, John.
I look forward to it. I'm ready. I can't wait, because I know it's going to be the beginning of the end for them. I do foresee victory. I see that at very great cost. But we will see it. And I think the world will become closer than ever when we do see victory. It's going to come on the back of a load of bloodshed, and unfortunately it has to. Once people of all colours come together and recognise their common enemy, we'll walk over these people in 10 minutes.
I hope so.
That's literally the story of FN 2187, who's taken from his home planet from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Young black kid.
Finn.
Taken from his planet to be a stormtrooper, to be a United Nations soldier.
Stormtrooper, an empire.
Did anyone else get that?
An empire
That's the
stormtrooper.
backstory of Finn from Star Wars.
But I'm really struck by something Jim said there. I mean, the 3%, that's all it took to overthrow. 3%. So when you have 3% of a population that is an UN-backed, or when Biden has let in now estimates of 30 million illegal immigrants into the United States in these few years, that's way more than 3%.
Yes.
That's way more than 3% that it would take to overthrow the United States. And these people are inside the United States. I mean, they're flooding the country with unvetted foreigners, distributing them all over the country, even providing them homes, financial support. Some say it's about election fraud, but it goes much deeper than that. It's a much bigger plan, and the United Nations is absolutely complicit in it. Todd Bensman, in a 2022 interview that I had archived, had this U.S.-bound Haitian in Mexico. He interviewed him, where he complains that the United States failed to make its payment on his UN credit card that he was given.
It works. We don't have money, and they haven't deposited to my account. ¿Cuánto te depositaban? El depósito el 7 de enero a 14 de enero, pero no deposita nada.
So the whole month of January you haven't received anything.
What were they supposed to receive in there?
¿Cuánto es lo que te dan? Es el último pago. ¿Cuánto fue? Cuatro, el dinero, 3,600 pesos.
3,600 pesos was the last payment I received.
And
it goes.
I
haven't received.
Does that go into your bank account?
¿A dónde va? ¿Tienes una cuenta? ¿Una tarjeta? Sí.
¿Tienes?
Oh, let me see. And how much is anything on that card now at all? Any money?
¿Tiene dinero ese? No, no hay dinero. No hay? No hay nada. No depositan nada.
So just to get a closer look up here, take a closer look at that UN bank card, the United Nations bank card. Unbelievable. Now, if you need any more evidence of this, just look at Gaza. This might be a hard pill for some people to swallow, but the United Nations has been captured on video footage coordinating with Hamas soldiers, as you can see here. So these are UN vehicles at UN headquarters. Drone recently captured footage of Hamas with these UN personnel transporting themselves in UN vehicles. And they're using United Nations buildings for the sake of hiding and staging attacks against Israel. Hamas, of course, was created by Israel, as Netanyahu openly has admitted. That's well established now. And they're armed by the United States. That's well established. So they pretend that they don't know what they're up to. It's a total lie. 2.4 million Palestinians are now being moved out of Gaza, being told to funnel into the center so they can be put on a UN-backed pier that's being built, that they'll be shipped out of Palestinian territory, and they'll be distributed all over the United States and all throughout Europe. Of course, they will not live in Gaza really ever again. That's the plan. That's the United Nations plan. That's exactly what Israel and the United States wants, and that's the distribution plan into the United States. So that, of course, Israel can take the oil and take the land, build a modern-day Dubai in Gaza, as we have well established. And the U.S. has already openly said this. The Biden administration has laid out this plan to have Palestinians moved to Western countries like the United States. So you need the United Nations to work hand in hand with Hamas to stir things up. That's how this works. It's unbelievable. We're going to have JJ Carroll. He's just back from Chicago on an unbelievable fact-finding mission there. And what he says is we are facing war. And he believes that we are about to see an explosion in places like Chicago, where you have, the population, you have in a lot of black population in Chicago fighting, literally ready to go to war with this invading army of these individuals from Africa and that are coming in. And it's unbelievable, the bloodshed that's unfolding right now, and no one will talk about it. We are heading for a war. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. We've got more news to get to here on your Monday.
Right. The next story, I labeled it, yes, they did know. You know why? Because I cannot handle it when you talk to people about the decisions of the COVID-19 pandemic and they say, well, we just didn't know any better. That's bullshit. A lot of people knew better. Medical professionals knew better. And I'm going to prove it to you. We're going to talk about what the medical community knew long before the pandemic and why they told us lies. This is sort of my gift to you, to clip up this segment and send it to people who give the benefit and the media the benefit of the doubt, because there's no excuse for that anymore. And I'm mad as snakes about it. So that's coming up next.
But first, in today's economic climate, many of us are finding ourselves facing the challenge of managing our monthly expenses. High credit card interest rates can trap you in a cycle of debt right now. American credit card debt is at an all-time high. Balances that persist month after month after month. And it must be nice, when illegal immigrants are just handed these free credit cards and Americans are struggling to put food on their table right now, paying only the minimum balance each month on those credit cards. It could take years to become debt-free. So reach out to our friends at American Financing, a trusted partner in helping people achieve financial freedom. If you're a homeowner, they can actually help tap into your home's equity, help you eliminate high-interest credit card debt right now. Some of these credit card debts are interest rates are now up to 22%, 23%, and even some of those store credit cards are 33% interest for credit cards. It's unbelievable right now. Their average customers save $854 per month. That's the equivalent of receiving a $10,000 annual raise. So the process is pretty straightforward and it's quick, and you could close your loan in as little as 10 days. And by acting today, you might not have to pay your next mortgage payment. It actually costs nothing to see how much you can save. This opportunity to regain control of your finances is too significant to ignore. Call their 800 number on the screen. It's 1-866-890-8434. Again, 866-890-8434, or go to AmericanFinancing.net/redacted. AmericanFinancing.net/redacted.
Well, when you mention to someone the absurdity of the pandemic, they often come back with, yeah, I guess we just didn't know any better. When someone says that to me, I go crazy bananas because that person's giving world leaders and the media a pass for things that they should have known and making truly nonsense rules, the governments and the media did, based on things that they did not study. They chose not to study. Here's just one lame example of no benches on a beach because COVID. There was never any science behind that. So this is a segment for you to either send to your friends, or if you're the kind of person that says, well, we just didn't know any better because we knew better, and I'm going to prove it to you. Now, not me personally. I'm not a medical professional. I didn't know the fatality rate of COVID or research about masks, infection-acquired immunity. I'm not a medical professional, but the medical community knew. And I'm going to show you. I brought the receipts today because I'm pissed when people say that to me and we have news about something that they lied to us about and knew better. We were prevented from asking questions. We were shut down on social media. We called people who asked these questions crazy. We know because we were forced to study for ourselves the last 4 years what the medical community has long since known, but they kept it from us. So here are the things that we supposedly didn't know about that medical professionals did know about. Infection-acquired immunity, COVID mortality rates, masking, lockdowns, COVID vaccine adverse events. They knew all of this stuff and they told us lies about it. So let's start with the first one because it's topical. Today, Representative Thomas Massie shared this clip of himself asking the CDC why they published data showing that the COVID vaccine was 92% effective for people who already had COVID. Now, you recall at the time, people who already had COVID were wondering, do I even need a vaccination? He saw a report from the CDC showing that people who were vaccinated or who were previously infected did in fact have a 92% less chance of getting COVID if they took the vaccine later. And he says, there's no data to show that. Anybody who'd been reading up on the time knew that none of the clinical trials had anything to do with previous COVID infections. So he called them and said, well, why are you saying this? Now, this is a long clip. It's about 5 minutes, but I want to watch it together because it is crystal clear that they made stuff up and they continued lying about it. And then we're going to continue in this vein. So watch.
These MMWR, they said that the vaccine was 92% efficacious for those who had already had COVID. I was struck by this claim because, well, first of all, I was interested because I had already had COVID and I was wondering whether to take the vaccine or not. And I had studied the Pfizer data, the top-line data and the FDA characterization of it. And you know what? The problem with the CDC's claim, it was completely inaccurate. The trials didn't prove that at all. The trials weren't designed to prove that. So I called up the CDC and I recorded the phone call. And they said, we'll get the top scientist on the line with you and we'll find out what the deal is here. And they got their top scientist on the line. And she said, wow, you found a mistake in our paper. I can't believe this was in there. We will fix this. We're going to call you Eagle Eye Massey over here at the CDC. And said, okay, that's great. I appreciate you fixing this because there's no data to support this.
Wait, can you pause for a second? Can we pause this here?
In January of 2021.
I'm sorry. So what he's saying is that the CDC put data into a paper and then they're like, oh, yeah, I don't know where that came from. This idea that people who had COVID, that the vaccine was 92% efficacious for them. And they're like, oh, that's funny. What? How does that happen? How do you accidentally have data that never existed? Okay, let's let him, I just can't let that go. Go ahead.
I call up and I look at their website, lo and behold, nothing has been fixed. And I then started contacting people at the CDC, and they were very averse to fixing it, the misstatement. And this began a saga. Just 3 minutes or 3 hours into the Biden administration was one of these phone calls when the cover-up started to begin. They were conflicted. They wanted everybody to take the vaccine. They didn't have data that showed it would help anybody who had already had the COVID infection, but they didn't want to change this. So I made lots of calls, recorded them all. They admitted to me that they were wrong and said they would fix it. They eventually changed it, but they never did fix it. Okay, so then a FOIA request went to CDC, and they produced over 1,000 pages, most of it redacted like this. The FOIA request was every conversation about Congressman Massey, and it produced, at CDC, it produced over 1,000 pages. Imagine that. But they were mostly redacted. They didn't want to say what they were saying about the truth that I was giving to them. So then I've been trying for years, and I tried in October and I tried in December of 2023 to get these unredacted emails. Well, right before this hearing, lo and behold, you all produced some unredacted emails. Here's the problem. You left out dozens of them. Dozens of these emails that were responsive to the request. And it was not by accident. These aren't minor oversights. Like, here are the kind of redactions. The whole entire email is redacted. The subject is the call from Rep. Thomas Massey. These are the kind of redactions. Look at this. Entire pages redacted. My question is, when are you going to produce these? And why are you not producing these? Why are you pretending that these emails don't exist? Some of them are in my inbox. Some of them are to me, but they're not in your production. Why?
Congressman, I want to thank you for acknowledging the production that my team did last week to you. And if there are specific documents that are not included and you can identify them, I am happy to continue to work with you and with the committee staff for productions. That production, as with all of the requests before this committee, have not stopped. We are happy to continue to work. We are happy to continue producing documents on a rolling basis, or if there are specific requests or specific documents.
Did you think this one was responsive? The subject is Call with Rep. Massey. It's Ann Tatum, Christina Cerna, and a month ago, Dr. Amanda Cohen and I had a call with Rep. Thomas Massey of Kentucky regarding concern about language in an MMWR from December 13th that was inaccurate. Redacted, redacted, redacted. He called again yesterday and is raising concerns about the issue, including on Twitter. Redacted, 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 redacted. I wanted to let you know in case you hear any more about it. Redacted, redacted, redacted. But wanted you to be aware of this issue is continuing. Dr. Shushat spoke with Rep. Massey today. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Anstons. Why did you think this is not responsive to my request?
Congressman, I'm not saying this was or were not responsive. We did a production last week. We did not say that our productions were finished. I'm happy if there are specific other documents, if there are specific things that you have that you would like us to produce, if you would like us to continue work, we are happy to continue the accommodation.
I've told you specifically what it is. We're 4 years into this. You know, we gave you the list of things to give us. We said the things that were responsive to the FOIA request. You conspicuously left out the most relevant emails. We're out of time. You are out of time. We are tired of this. It's not incompetence, it's insolence. And I yield back.
Alberto in our chat says that should be the new redacted intro.
Yeah.
Redacted, redacted, redacted.
Right.
I know, I was thinking that too as I was watching that. I was like,
of course, I'm here for the branding.
Yeah, exactly.
How absolutely frustrating it is that like, he's like, I've given you this request. We want these documents. Like, here are these documents. Like, well, I can't read them. They're redacted. And they're like, oh, well, then here's some that aren't redacted. Like, but where are the other documents? Well, if you have specific requests, it's like, well, I already gave you the damn request.
Gave you them.
Give me everything that's redacted to unredact it and send it back to me. That's what, like, how clear is that?
Well, and also that it's from his inbox. Like, it's from his own email that they're redacting.
There's some, right, because they must have forwarded some of his emails as well. So clearly he's saying this data never existed and you put it into a public study. You need to retract this. And when they hadn't, why have you not done this yet? Why are you still not telling the American people that you did not test the COVID vaccine against previous infection? Why? They knew better. That's why. That's the whole purpose of this segment is I'm proving to you they knew better. They knew And the data has borne out, real world data has borne out since, that previous infection to COVID is superior to any pharmaceutical made vaccination. And here is a congressional hearing last year where Iowa Representative Marionette Miller Meeks, a doctor, is talking on a panel to another doctor, Dr. Martin Kulldorff, about infection-acquired immunity.
Fanatics who wants to vaccinate every person in this country, even though they are children who has very little risk for it, even though they've already had the COVID, that has undermined the trust in other vaccines enormously, creating enormous vaccine hesitancy.
So not allowing their provider or physician to determine the risk and the benefit.
Yeah, and also people themselves, because people know that about immunity. We learn that in school. People know that if you've had a disease, you had...
It wasn't until I came to Congress that I found out infection-acquired immunity was a novel concept.
Yeah, I guess we knew about it since 430 BC of the Athenian plague until 2020, and then we didn't know about it for 3 years, and now we know about it again, so.
Okay, that was convenient. They knew better. That one's a mic drop. Okay, we were told here on YouTube we couldn't even say the words natural immunity because other channels were getting strikes for that. On Twitter, people were downranked for talking about natural immunity, meaning in previous infection. Okay, so that one, they knew better. You can't say that anymore. Don't say that. Let's go forward and discuss COVID mortality rates. Well, we knew right away that COVID was not dangerous for children and young people and was the most dangerous for the elderly. Here is real data from the CDC today showing that again, people who are older have a higher risk of death, not with COVID, but involving COVID now. They don't even attribute these deaths to COVID anymore because they cannot prove it, because they told us that people were dying of COVID when really they had comorbidities and pre-existing conditions and complications. And in fact, later they would report deaths involving COVID as COVID. And the CDC later admitted that they overcounted COVID deaths. They did know better from real world data leading up to pandemic lockdowns and decisions. And they only admitted this after the Guardian investigation pointed it out. They were never going to admit it until they were caught. So at least some experts knew that COVID was less fatal, as the government and the media put it, and certainly less fatal and less dangerous for younger people and healthy people. But we were not allowed to discuss that or share that on social media. People knew better. Okay, now, which brings me to masking. We knew that masking for long periods of time was dangerous, and we knew that it did not necessarily filter out the COVID virus. This is the best study I've seen on the toxicity of masks, and if you read it and go to the references section, it shows that scientists have known for decades that there is a danger of CO2 inhalation from prolonged mask exposure. Read this, find this paper, screenshot it if you have to. In fact, scientists have known that prolonged CO2 inhalation from mask exposure and other prolonged CO2 exposure in other ways can lead to at least these things: testicular dysfunction, stillbirths, reduced motor and verbal skills for children, and overall cognitive decline for children, especially those born during the pandemic. We knew this. At least some of these studies are dated the 1970s. So somebody knew that the mask requirement could be dangerous for people. So why weren't we allowed to say it? And in fact, on YouTube through 2021, there was a ban against what they called misinformation, including claims that masks do not play a role in preventing the contraction and transmission of COVID-19. In fact, Senator Rand Paul had a video removed and a suspension from his channel because he posted a video saying that masks did not necessarily prevent the spread. Many channels were taken down or had penalties because of it. Why didn't we hear from experts who'd been studying this for decades? During the pandemic, this data existed. Why did they keep it from us? We also knew that COVID particulates could penetrate masks, and when they did, masking could increase the danger of COVID due to something called the Fogan effect. This is a study from 2022 showing that mask wearing can make COVID exposure worse, given that when the virus gets in there, you can't exhale it. It goes deeper into your lungs while you're wearing a mask. And so you may get a bigger viral load And that increased mortality rates in counties that had mask mandates. But yet mask mandates were kept in place. We never debated the Fogan effect. Why? Okay. We also worried that masks could be toxic, but we required young children to wear them anyway, all day outside in the heat. Here's a study from 2023 published by the NIH. And again, the reference section shows that experts knew that exposure to the toxins that exist in these masks were worse, and in fact, dangerous and worse in hot weather. Some of these studies were done as early as the 1990s, and yet we were not allowed to debate masks. We were told, send your kids in these masks with these toxins.
Do you remember those awful videos out of Italy too, when they were having that heat wave and the schools, in Europe, they don't really have air conditioning. They don't believe in air conditioning. And in Italy, it was, I think in Naples, they had all these kids in these like heat wave classrooms and they were wearing masks. And
no, I think about my kids like in a gym running in masks in heat, and I'm so pissed off still about it.
And North Carolina go ahead, Philip.
Oh, it's like I was going to say, I remember like when they were pushing the mask mandates, you'd see all these pictures from like the Spanish flu epidemic of, what was it, like the 20s, wasn't it around there or something like that?
Yeah.
Where you'd see all these pictures of people wearing their cloth masks and stuff like that. It's like, that's what we reverted to. We immediately just went back to, let's go back to the 1920s and do what they did then, because that seemed to work.
Yeah.
And North Carolina right now has a bill before Congress in North Carolina that would make it illegal for people to wear face coverings in public for health reasons. No more masks in North Carolina. The Senate's already passed the bill, and it would make it illegal to wear face coverings for health reasons of any kind.
Illegal to mandate a mask or to wear a mask? Like you could still choose to if you wanted to, right?
It would make it illegal to wear a face covering for health reasons of any kind. The provision was intended to repeal the exemption that people had for health reasons. Okay. But anyway, no masking in North Carolina.
Nevertheless, and a friend of mine who's a nurse, she said they taught us in medical school, in nursing school, that a mask is only effective for 20 minutes. And then you either have to change it or do something. But, we kept kids in them all day. Okay, let's move on to lockdowns, because we could talk a blue streak about masking. Did we know that lockdowns could be dangerous for populations? Well, we knew a lot of things that we were not allowed to discuss. For instance, we knew that this would lead to an increase in domestic violence. We knew that weakening an economy would lead to depression and increase alcoholism. We've seen all of these things. Did we know what it would do to children to take them out of school? We did. Here is one such study published. These studies are old. This one's from 2013, talking about what happens when someone loses up to 1 year of education, is that their life expectancy drops. Look at this chart. For every year less of education that a child gets, their life expectancy increases from preventable causes, meaning the more a child stays in school, the more likely they are to live a healthy life and not die from preventable causes. We knew that. Every year of missed education lowers life mortality. Now think about that. Some of these charts are from as far back as 2004. But Jennifer Say, the head of Levi, she lost her job from saying this is bad for our kids to be out of school. And we were told that lockdowns and school closures were necessary. We cost children their life expectancy from a virus that did not harm them. The data was there. And finally, about the COVID vaccine, well, again, we've been over this ad nauseum. You can read the early trials yourself, and you will know that the vaccine was not tested for the spread of COVID-19, even though the government and the media said that it would prevent the spread. The clinical trials were never meant to test that. Early trials only showed adverse events like cough, or the early trials only tested for symptoms, basically. Like, did you cough or sneeze within the time of vaccination? And so we've been over this data. They did show adverse events like myocarditis and stroke, and not in small numbers that were insignificant. You can read the clinical trials yourself and also read what's called the marketing material. This is an adverse events report from as early as February of 2021, 2 months into the vaccine rollout, that showed adverse events. We went over it. In fact, going over this document got us a channel strike on YouTube because this was, see who published this? This was not conjecture. We went over Pfizer's own documents and got punished here on YouTube.
Yeah, they banned us for 2 weeks.
Right. So I'm not going to go over it again. I'm going to show it to you. You can seek it out. Yeah. But, this was not a they didn't know better situation. So read it for yourself. You will never say something as dumb as they didn't know better. But, if you wanted to know for yourself, if you wanted to ask questions, you were called a crazy conspiracy theory. Here's what Russell Brand had to say about this recently on X, saying AstraZeneca withdrawn from after admitting blood clots. Pfizer settling cancer cases out of court. Former CNN anchors taking ivermectin. Where is your conspiracy theory now? And in fact, the former director of the CDC recently said on Chris Cuomo's show that, young, healthy people who didn't need the COVID vaccine were harmed. Well, it's nice that he's saying this now, but why didn't he say this all along when it's clear, I think, from the data I've just presented to you, that they should have known that already? So let's let him say it, and then we're going to collectively get pissed off again.
Those of us that tried to suggest there may be significant side effects from vaccines, we kind of, like with the rest of your show that you had early on, we kind of got canceled because no one wanted to talk about the potential that there was a problem from the vaccines because they were afraid that that would cause people not to want to get vaccinated. The reality is, I was part of Warp Speed. These are important vaccines. We saved a lot of lives. They're important for the most vulnerable people, those over 65 years of age. They really aren't that critical for those that are under 50 or younger. But those vaccines saved a lot of lives, but they're also, we have to be honest, some people got significant side effects from the vaccine. I have a number of people that are quite ill, and they never had COVID, but they are ill from the vaccine, and we just have to acknowledge that.
All right. Well, it's too late for you to be acknowledging it now. People were hurt. Some people have lifelong adverse events now that they still have to deal with, if they still have a life. Right. If you know what I mean. Now, he says here that vaccines save lives. We've been over this data ad nauseum. The studies that they use to say that the vaccine saved lives is about as reliable as a disposable diaper. It's the fact that fewer people were put on respirators is their main, vaccines saved lives. And the fact that we never got to the mathematical modeled death counts that they expected. That's the only proof that they have to say that vaccines saved lives. So I can't let that one go. So my question here, now that I've laid out all of the receipts showing that the medical community knew things that we were not allowed to talk about, and the media lacked curiosity to learn those things, we didn't here on Redacted, we've done our homework. You can't say that they didn't know. The government also lacked curiosity to learn the things that the medical community already knew. So you cannot give them a free pass anymore. These people in power had an opportunity to know better, and they chose not to. So the only people I think that can say that you can, they didn't know, are people who got their news from the corporate media and world governments. Those people were lied to on purpose, and they didn't know. But that pass is expiring, you guys. If after all this, you still trust the corporate media and the government, it is high time that you knew better. That's what I have to say about it.
Great job. All right, we got more news to get to here on your Monday. We're going to talk about this massive terror alert. A global terror alert has just been issued by the United States government. A global terror alert. We'll tell you why. We're also going to look at the illegal immigrants using a new strategy, Chinese illegal immigrants specifically in the United States using a new strategy to make money, and could be similar that led to a now famous murder that happened just a short time ago. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, it's no secret right now. We are following what's happening with all of the dumping of the U.S. treasuries right now. So countries around the world want to get their hands away from the U.S. dollar. China dumping more treasuries. Japan trying to dump as many U.S. treasuries as they can. The Fed flew in, Jerome Powell flew in and had a secret meeting and said, please don't dump your U.S. treasuries. Please do not get rid of U.S. dollars right now. We will artificially prop up your government. We will artificially prop up the yen. It's unbelievable. And now we have the BRICS nations coming together to roll out their own currency, and the writing is on the wall for the US dollar. That's why in the past 24 hours, gold hit a new all-time high. And we're such big proponents of investing in gold here on this show. Our friends at Lear Capital can help you do it. And you don't have to invest a lot. I mean, but my suggestion is if you've got like a few $1,000s in your savings account sitting in US dollars right now, you may want to seriously consider converting it to precious metals. So, and you can have them sent right to your home. You can store it in your own gun locker, your gun vault if you want. You can have it sent off-site and stored in a secure facility. It's totally up to you where you want to store it. You can also set up a gold-backed IRA, so a self-directed retirement account that's backed by gold. You can do all of that, and our friends at Lear Capital can help you do that. Just give them a phone call, and they love talking to you. This is a team that's dedicated to working with our Redacted viewers. They're fantastic. They're American patriots. You're not going to get some guys in some call center in India. They are American. They will help you. 1-800-613-3557. And when you call them, please ask them, say, first of all, Clayton sent you. Say, hey, Clayton sent me over here. Can you please give me this free gold guide? And they will do that for you. They will send you the free gold guide because they have price targets now of $3,200 an ounce for gold. So ask them for that $3,200 price target guide and just walk through the process. Ask them, how can I take an old IRA or an old 401k that I have sitting there, convert it to a self-directed gold IRA? We've done it. It's fantastic. You should check it out. You can also visit their website if you don't want to get on the phone, but I suggest talking to them because they're great. But go to LearRedacted.com, and you can also receive up to $15,000 in free bonus metals with a qualified purchase. Go to LearRedacted.com, LearRedacted.com.
Well, the U.S. State Department issued a global travel alert for all U.S. citizens to exercise worldwide caution because of gay pride events, because, of course, June is Gay Pride Month. I mean, they don't issue these all that often, and here was one just within the last few days. So what are they saying? They're saying that Americans can be subject to terrorism abroad because we support gay rights, but other backwater places you might travel don't. So if you go to a pride event, you are a brave trailblazer, and that makes you a target for terrorism.
This is such garbage.
Yes.
This is such garbage. I mean, to me, it's I'm going to call it a dog whistle. This is exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's in like the loudest form of like virtue signaling possible. Like,
right. Okay.
Are you one of the brave people that supports trans rights? If you go out anywhere into the world,
you'll be persecuted
you
for it.
Might experience terrorism.
You are basically a suffragette if you do this, right?
Right.
And so, but let's just think for a second. Okay, if you're really worried about people going to pride events and maybe getting faced with combat situations, would you wear this? Would you, if you think
that's a tactical bra,
right? If you if you think you might be subject to terror, maybe you want to suit up a little better. What do you think? Is this good combat gear if you know you're going somewhere where there'll be terrorists?
You're naked
Thoughts?
on. No, first of all, I pity that bike. I pity that bike seat, and that's disgusting.
Yeah, and I'm so worried about like pulled pubes. That seems like it could get in a gear and hurt a lot.
Oh.
But that's where my mind went.
I'm glad your mind went there.
Really shouldn't have your pubes anywhere near the gear. I don't know how you ride a bike, but
the bicycle seat has like springs on it. Something's
it's a low rider.
Yeah.
She rides a low rider.
I ride. I know. Okay, I don't do a lot of bike riding. That just seems very uncomfortable. But also, again, like if you're really like, hey, you might experience some terror, maybe you should wear any clothes, like some combat boots or something like that. That just seems not very practical if you really care about people.
But again, these are very brave ambassadors for the LGBTQ plus I plus TZ cause. So they're out there. They're out there. They're free balling it, and they're showing the world.
Yeah. But there's no like what to do about it. It's just be vigilant. It's not like, pack some Band-Aids, a helmet.
Yeah. What do you pack to go to a terrorism event? What do you?
I don't know, but something. You got to have something, not nothing, not nudity.
Not a tactical bra like that guy.
Well, let me know what you guys think. I mean, if you're going into a dangerous situation, do you want to go naked? That seems like the most vulnerable that you could be?
There's certain situations I'd want to go naked, but not this.
No, this is not it,
this,
right?
not
Okay.
this.
All right, let's move on. Let's go back to the alert. Is it true that this is a dog whistle to sow division and remind the world that, oh, we Americans, we're the progressive ones and other countries should learn for us? The government is basically saying you need to stay alert at pride celebrations and venues that are frequented by LGBTQI plus persons. Again, also, if they meant it, maybe they would say, try not to drink alcohol when you go to these boozy events, because if you're boozy and tipsy, you can't be on the lookout for terrorists, right? If you're going to stay alert. So they don't give, it's not practical. It's not a very practical suggestion. Like, maybe don't drink, maybe wear some clothes, maybe have a Band-Aid, and, you know, it's nothing.
Yeah,
Just
like if
go vulnerable to these pride events and hope there's not a terrorist.
Yeah, like you don't want to have like 2 drinks in if ISIS shows up.
Really, I wouldn't.
You won't be able to like go prone as quickly as possible. Plus, if you go prone and anything's like not prone, it could break and hurt. You know, like you gotta be prepared when Osama comes around.
These are my thoughts exactly. There's no practical tips on what you're due.
But this is the State Department's. You know, I love that the State Department's taken time out of its day to issue this alert.
Right.
These alerts.
Exactly. So another question I have is, which are the terrorist groups that are targeting pride events? Do you know of any? Clayton, have you heard of any terrorist groups who are particularly upset about pride events?
I'm going to probably think these terrorists that the Biden administration is probably targeting. They're probably Trump supporters. They're probably MAGA, white supremacist Trump supporters.
Travel advisory.
But there could be MAGA Trump supporters in other countries. You don't know.
Tehran?
They are the greatest. I don't know if you know this, but MAGA white supremacists are the greatest threat to world security.
Okay.
So you could be in Hungary and you could see like somebody in a Make America Great Again hat, and that's probably a terrorist.
Okay.
That's my first instinct.
Is this tracking with you guys? Do you feel like this is something we need to be worried about?
I mean, that's what Mayorkas told us, and so we need to be careful. Blinken is also concerned about that.
Well, yeah. I would just like to take this opportunity to remind you that the last time that a terrorist did attack a gay club, it had absolutely nothing to do with homophobia. The narrative of the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting from 2016 was a complete lie from the government and the media, and they helped each other tell it. So when a man in 2016 opened fire in a gay nightclub in Florida, he was not homophobic. He could give a shit about gayness. He was protesting the U.S. war on civilians in Afghanistan, and he said so. The media held that from us. It had nothing to do with him being a closeted, self-hating homophobe. He was not that.
And he didn't even know what the club was about.
He didn't.
He actually tried to go to Disney World first, didn't he?
Yes, I'm going to show you that in a second. So here is the Eiffel Tower and CNN with a rainbow flag trying to honor the victims of the shooting in 2016. Here is a Guardian columnist having an absolute hissy fit and walking off Sky News because the host would not admit that the shooting was homophobia, because it wasn't.
This has to be called out for what it is. It was an intentional attack on LGBT people. This person,
on the freedom of all people to try and enjoy themselves as Bataclan.
No, I'm sorry. Can we just explain? You don't understand this because you're not gay, okay? So just
whether
listen.
I'm gay or not has no.
No, it does.
It has no reflection on the fact that this person killed.
You have ownership of horror of this crime.
Can I just say,
because
I
you're
find
gay.
this. I find this
I'm not Jewish and I'm not gay.
Excuse me. I've had enough of this. Let me go.
Owen, genuinely, we're trying to have a civilised conversation. I know you're upset. You're upset, and you're angry. I'm quite right. Everyone's upset and angry about this, but storming off a TV set.
Right. Well, I think we'll continue the press preview.
Okay. That's what Coleman Hughes in his book, The End of Race Politics, calls the myth of superior knowledge, because if you're not a part of a group, you don't get it. So you don't get to talk. Shut up. Now, on CNN, they lost their voices screaming about hate crimes and gay rights and homophobia after this. Only this was not a story of homophobia. The Orlando nightclub shooter Omar Mateen did not care about gayness at all. He cared that the U.S. stop bombing the Middle East and wanted to avenge those war crimes. Mateen was of Afghan heritage, and he told his hostages that his motive was to stop the U.S. from bombing his country and also stop bombing Syria and Iraq and killing, this is a quote, he wanted them to stop killing a lot of innocent people. Now, I get it. He killed innocent people. That was obviously horrific, but at least we honor the victims by honoring what they really died for. And it had nothing to do with who they love. That's the real story of the Pulse nightclub shooting. But it has not stopped the One Pulse Foundation from fundraising on the gay pride movement. Now the city of Orlando is building a big gay pride monument or something in this location. Here's the mayor's tweet about it. You can see the imagery here, right? Front and center, rainbow flags, what seems to be lesbians standing out there, sad about their community. What this should be is not a gay pride or any kind of homophobic type of awareness monument. It should be an anti-war memorial, because as long as the U.S. still kills people in Afghanistan and abroad, extremists will keep attacking innocent civilians. A gay pride memorial does not honor these deaths at all. An anti-war memorial would do that. And in fact, when Mateen held these hostages inside the club, here's what he wrote on his Facebook page just before. This is from Scott Horton's book about it. He says, "You have to stop Americans from stop bombing Iraq and Syria." Here's the quote. He said it repeatedly. Why did they not tell us this? Why did they give us all of this sadness around homophobia? And why did he choose a gay club? Well, when the Justice Department tried to prosecute his wife, they found that he originally had his sights set on Disney World, but figured the security was too tight. And of course, we don't even want to think about how awful it would have been. And what's more, Orlando police waited outside the club for hours as people inside bled to death. And when cops finally arrived, they opened fire and killed civilians too. And no one was ever held accountable. And the shooter was a subscriber to al-Nusra, who was al-Nusra's big supporter inside the U.S. government? Barack Obama. He called them moderates and gave them all their weapons, allowed them to become extremists. They're not moderates. So the State Department can say all they want about wanting to keep Americans safe abroad because they want to go to pride events, that they will not be keeping anyone safe with an alert like this. They would be keeping Americans safe if they stopped waging war on civilians abroad, stop supporting terrorists, stop overthrowing governments, stop pretending people hate us because of our freedoms and gayness. They hate us because of our government's murderous record. So if you want to buy this bullshit terror alert, State Department about pride events, you go right ahead.
Thank you for that. Someone in our chat says, Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the world. Spooky Spoon says Tel Aviv, Israel is the gay capital of the world.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a place you'd want to avoid, right? If you're worried about terror alerts right now, maybe that's a concern.
I don't think that's the first reason I'd avoid Tel Aviv, but yeah, that's one.
That's on the list right now.
Sure.
It's up there. It's up there.
It's up there with constant rockets going off and the alerts that are constantly going.
And yeah, government surveillance is another.
Yeah, that could be.
Lot of reasons that that's not my first destination.
KK Westbury says FBI is arresting Christian grandmas, right? Yeah. This is their big concern right now.
That's the terrorist group. That's
going into church events right now, going after Catholics and Christians, and going into. That's what the FBI whistleblowers were so fed up about. Garrett O'Boyle and others, that this is what they were doing, targeting Catholics.
Right.
Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Sorry, I was just reading some stuff there. Okay, what do we have?
Comments.
Some comments. Yeah, I like to read the comments.
All right. Did anybody have a better tactical outfit for a gay pride event? Philip, did you see anything in the chat, or did you?
Well, I haven't done the gay pride like that, but I have done the World Naked Bike Ride. And the first year I did it in a luchador mask and a cape and nothing else. And I do not recommend the cape on a bike. Just saying that will get caught in the gears.
Okay.
So that's my tactical decision.
Yeah.
Just the mask.
Be careful.
I mean, does the mask double as a helmet? Was it actually?
No, not at all.
That's not responsible. No. That's the part I have the biggest problem with.
TK says, I thought San Francisco is the gay capital of the United States. Maybe is that the case? Is that San Francisco?
I don't know anymore about those.
I think everyone's moved out of San Francisco because it's a hellhole.
I mean, even the best San Francisco gay clubs are closed now. There was one called the Cafe, I believe. It was in the Castro, and that's long since closed.
Everything's closed.
There was, yeah.
Every store is closed.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad when they can't even keep, there's a Latin drag club that was called Esta Noche in the Mission.
Yeah.
It was really fun for dancing. And yeah, that one's gone. It's like, that times are hard when you can't even keep gay clubs open in San Francisco.
Yeah, that is really sad. That is crazy. All right, we've got more news to get to here. We're going to look at these illegal immigrants and Uber Eats. What do they have in common? What does DoorDash, Uber Eats, and illegal Chinese immigrants in the United States have in common? We will tell you. It's pretty startling. We'll do that in a second. But first, we should remind you guys, we have a newsletter. Publishes Monday through Thursday, unless we're sick and we can't publish and we're sick and stuck in bed, because we're a small family operation here. So it's just Natalie and I writing the newsletter Monday through Thursday. And on Thursday, Natalie and I were both sick, so we didn't have a newsletter on Thursday. We apologize for that. But anyway, we're not some big news corporation, but we try to cover some big stories delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning, depending on where you live around the world. And, we try to shed light on stories you're not going to see other places. All you need to do to sign up for it is go to redacted.inc, just redacted.inc, not .com. Put in your email address, and then you will receive a welcome email from us. And you just need to confirm that you want to receive the newsletter, and you'll get it tomorrow morning. And like I said, you can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes. We cover like 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day. So redacted.inc is the place to go. Well, you might be wondering, how do illegal aliens in the United States gain access to employment, right? With background checks, you'd think that would be a non-starter, but that's not the case at Uber and DoorDash, where the next time you order some food or the next time you jump into an Uber, that person driving you might be an illegal immigrant, a legal alien, using fake accounts or stealing accounts in order to get employment through these services. Our next guest, Anthony Rubin from muckraker.com, has just released a bombshell report on this, speaking with, in fact, illegal Chinese nationals who are renting Uber and DoorDash accounts from legitimate account holders in order to run this operation. And Anthony joins us now. Anthony, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Clayton. I appreciate it.
This is an unbelievable story. So I think we first kind of heard about this, or the idea of this, a few months ago. Can you kind of paint a picture here on how you guys first learned that this might actually be happening?
Yeah, well, there's been a Chinese illegal alien that I've been in touch with for over a year now, and he has led me to other stories that I've broken in your show, like that Chinese invasion blueprint. And so I'm still in touch with this illegal alien. I met him in the Darien Gap, and he's very open. He says, hey, I actually reached out to him. I said, hey, do you know if there's anything that's newsworthy maybe that you could share with me? And he told me that this was going on. And so I flew out to Rosemead, California. That's right there in Los Angeles, and met up with two of these drivers. But according to them, there's many more. One of them was driving for DoorDash. Another one's driving for Uber Eats. And it's exactly as you said. They rent out. Basically, they meet up with somebody who is a legitimate account holder, who is oftentimes an illegal alien themselves, but they've been in the U.S. long enough to establish residency and get a U.S. driver's license and a social security number, and so they can get an Uber account. And then so this illegal alien that has the Uber account rents it out to an illegal alien who just got here, doesn't have the documents necessary to get the account, and the driver, the fraudulent driver, takes 85%, the account holder takes 15%, and it's just done like that. No background check, nothing.
And so people are unwittingly sitting in these cars. They don't know that they're being driven by an illegal immigrant. And these individuals are making money, and they might be delivering your food on top of it, right?
Correct. And to be clear, I didn't interview anybody that was driving passengers for Uber. It was only Uber Eats and DoorDash. However, I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like a far stretch that there could be people driving passengers doing the same thing. One thing that's really important to note, in my research, I found this. After Laken Riley was tragically murdered by the criminal illegal alien that should never have been in this country, Jose Ibarra, okay, after she was murdered, his wife came out and said, well, he was actually employed by DoorDash and Uber Eats. And this was written in the New York Post. Okay, it was like on the cover of the New York Post, February 25th. People can go look at that and go see written there. He was employed by Uber Eats and DoorDash. But then those companies came out and they said, but we deny ever employing him. There's no record of it. And so that leads me to believe either one of two things. Number one, the wife is lying, but that's a very strange thing to lie about. I mean, why would you lie about your husband? Or number two, he was doing the exact same thing that these people are doing, renting out the account of somebody else and driving around for Uber Eats and DoorDash. And so, listen, if it's true or not, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the wife was lying. But the point is that without any background check, you could have a murderous illegal alien delivering your food. It's very well possible.
And they could be discerning about the types of people they want to deliver food to, right? Oh, it's a beautiful young girl. Sure, I'll take that order. And this is what we have. Of course, we have this now repeatedly, and of course, it's happening in Europe as well. Have DoorDash or number three option in that scenario is that DoorDash and Uber Eats are lying, right? That they're lying
that
about
as well.
Have they gone on the record at all about this latest report?
Not about my report, not that I know of. I'll have to check again. But I know that Senator Marsha Blackburn and others, there was a couple of others, Ted Budd from North Carolina and one more that I can't recall. They actually sent a letter to Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash, I think a couple of weeks ago, concerned about this exact thing. There's no legislation that's being passed, as far as I know, or legislation that's even like up and coming. But apparently they sent a letter, and let's see what happens, to these companies telling them that they need to clean up their act. But yeah, I mean, these are the same companies that are spending millions of dollars on Black Lives Matter, Marxist organizations like that, and the sexual cult that is the LGBTQ plus, if you even want to call it a community. I mean, it's a cult, it's an ideology. They're putting millions of dollars behind this, but it seems a little bit like a misallocation of resources. It seems like they should be putting that towards, safety and security while this is going on.
You would think so. But of course they're not. When you talk about the IDs and the identification process of this, of course, so many people concerned, well, this is how they're going to be able to vote, right? They don't, they're able to use these accounts. They're able to get driver's licenses. I mean, they're going through a whole process here where they in order to do this, they have to get all sorts of legal documentation. I mean, did your source basically explain how they're able to pull all of this off?
How the illegal aliens are able to legitimately get accounts?
Yeah. I mean, how are they able to legitimately get accounts, but also be able to show that they're getting proper driver's licenses and all of these other things?
Well, it's not very difficult when they come over here, especially in states like California, where I was at, for these people to get established residency and then get a driver's license and then get a social security number. It's very, it's a simple process, and they have deep nested communities of people that have already been over here and taken the route and come into the country illegally that then got them through the process. What I will say is this, though, and this is really incredible, and this is something that I learned when I was there. One of the people that I met, and she would not go on record or have me film her or even record her voice or write anything down, was just speaking, but she was a Chinese lawyer, okay, a lawyer from China. She practiced in China that is over here now on a tourist visa. And she's been here for 6 months. She flew over here. Within a couple of months, she passed the bar, okay? And now this Chinese national is working in a Chinese law firm helping practicing immigration law, charging $400 an hour, working in the state of California, and helping Chinese illegal aliens claim refugee status. And so if that doesn't sound like a potential conflict of interest, I mean, to put it lightly, I don't know what else to call it. It's a national security threat is what it is, and she's not the only one.
Did your source explain how widespread he thought this was? Was this sort of isolated to Rosemead, California, or does this seem like, you talked about Lincoln Riley, of course, but does it seem like it's more widespread than this?
Well,
and I should follow up that question because, we hear a lot of these individuals using certain groups, whether it's a Discord chat or some sort of a Telegram channel, to get this information out there. Did he give you a sense of where all of this communication is happening to let these illegals know, here's where you go, here's the process, here are the illegal accounts, and it's sort of a flourishing group online in some sort of a Telegram channel or a Signal group or something else?
Well, they have many different groups. There's different activists, shall we call them, that are active on Twitter. Let me just say this. There is an illegal alien who runs a website called Yemen101.com that this illegal alien served in the People's Armed Police Force. That is a paramilitary organization in communist China. It serves as an auxiliary force to the People's Liberation Army in China. His name is Ziasin Li. Okay, he served in the People's Armed Police Force. I asked when he confirmed it. You can go look up his name and find news articles about him and see him dressed up in this gear. Now, He runs this website, Yemen101.com, and what it is, it's basically a how-to website for Chinese immigrants. Basically, what to do in the United States, how to work your asylum case. It tells immigrants how to purchase firearms, this sort of thing. Now, but I want to say, so they have all these websites and they have groups on Twitter, groups on WeChat. They pass around documents like the one that I broke on your show almost a year ago. What I will say is this, though. This illegal immigrant, I don't want to get too off topic, but it is relevant. This illegal immigrant who's over here now, in the country illegally as a refugee, apparently, saw that I talked about his website, Yemen101.com, on Fox News, and I wake up one day to 100 messages from the guy, and he's threatening to sue me. Okay, so this is what we have to deal with. So Americans aren't even allowed to talk about what these people do without them threatening us with a lawsuit. Now, I don't even know how any of this is allowed to happen, but apparently it is. But to answer, long-winded answer to what you say, they have many different groups, websites, WeChat groups, WhatsApp groups, and they pass around documents and more.
Unbelievable. Well, we'll wait to see if DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, if they respond to your latest report. Let us know if they do. We will share that information with our audience as well. Anthony Rubin from Muckraker continues to do amazing work over there, and we appreciate you always sharing it with us. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you so much, Clayton. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Anthony. We really appreciate it. And we should also point out, if you want to check out Muckraker's full report, we'll have a link in the description box below so you can go watch their full report on this as well. So thanks to Anthony for that. Hey, before we go, we should tell you about our store. We have a Redacted store. If you'd like to support independent journalism, come on over and visit our store. We've got hats. We've got some great t-shirts over there. Our Do Not Comply hats, our Do Not Comply t-shirts. Our hoodies are fantastic. We support our farmers, of course, so you can check out some of our great farmers gear. And, we'd like to stick it to Canada a little bit, the move to try to, make it illegal for you to talk about how much you like oil and natural gas. That was actually moving through Parliament in Canada. That's how crazy they are. So we got our Got Oil t-shirts as well. You can check those out. And a couple of our viewers have sent us photos of them wearing these, so you can post them on Twitter. Be sure to tag us on Twitter if you do, and we'll show some photos here on the show. So thanks so much. Redactedstore.com is the place to go. Redactedstore.com. So thank you guys so much for joining us here on this Monday. Again, thanks for putting up with the illness that flew through our family here and took us down, and we were able to do the show on Thursday. So thanks again, guys, for your support and your love. And we'll be back here tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great night, everyone.